p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd. We're going to have the Walpole Sewer and Water Commission meeting. As of March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. As a result, this meeting will be done remotely. All members will be participating remotely during the meeting. Every vote taken will be by roll call. So with that, we'll start the meeting. First item is the abatements. Is anyone
take a roll call? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Pardon me?
Can we take a roll call? Did I miss that?
No, I was saying we will take any votes.
Well, I have you on speaker right now. This should work.
Okay.
All right.
First item is the abatements. If anyone has any question, if they could raise it now. Otherwise, we'll make a motion to have me sign the abatements and bring them down to Mary after the meeting's over.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Moved by Glenn, second by John. To approve the meetings. So roll call, all those in favor. John Spillane?
Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn Murphy?
Aye.
And Patrick Fasanello? We're getting feedback on Pat there, Bernie. Bill, myself, I'm saying aye, so we'll go with 4-0-0 at this point. I will sign them and bring them down to you, Mary.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Bernie, can you just tell Patrick to dial in on his cell phone?
I did, sir. I asked him to do that about 15 minutes ago.
That'd be the best bet, I think.
I asked him to do that, and he did not want to do that. I don't know why.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving along further, the next item is the minutes of the February 8th meeting. In the draft, there have been a couple corrections. First is on the second page, Superintendent's Report. Skater was misspelled at SCADA. And all references to the Stock River is Stop River. Are there any other changes? Hearing none.
Make a motion
Okay.
that we approve the minutes from February 8th.
I'll second.
All right. So we got a motion and a second for the changes. All those in favor? John Spillane?
Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn Murphy?
Aye.
Patrick Fasanello? And Bill Abbott? Aye. Okay. Next item is Superintendent's Status Report. Bernie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. One new water main break. It was on Fisher Street, and that was a couple weeks ago. The SCADA upgrade is ongoing. We've had Woodward and Current come in. As we find little hiccups in the system, they come in and they address them. The grant program, the GIS work has begun. We're working with Wright Pierce, ironing out some loose ends, and CDM, which is the actual GIS contractor for the town. They're going to get together and they're going to try to address any field issues that are unfolding as we're doing the project. We added one new treatment technician last month. He's doing excellent, showing very much enthusiasm and making a lot of progress. So we're very, very happy with Ryan Glosson that's just added to the team. The distribution crew is working on maintenance, and they're also working on the locations for the Route 1 state project. We had an informal meeting with MDR, the contractor that's going to be doing the work, and there should be a construction meeting, preliminary construction meeting on the 31st of this month. The bid has been awarded for the sandblasting and painting of the filters. The last selectmen's meeting. Scheduling the work with Roberts Filter will be coordinated soon, and there's more on Roberts Filter's proposal in the discussion in your packet. Lenny McCool and Ali are working on permanent lagoon configurations at the Wells plant in accordance with the administrative order that we have with the EPA. We'll be cleaning the drying lagoon very shortly. It needs to dry up a little bit more. We're going to be retrofitting another curtain in the upcoming weeks, and that'll be the temporary fix until we have the engineering work and so on and so forth. And I get a price on what it's going to cost to do a permanent fix for the Willis Plant lagoons. The distribution crew is also working on some drain work, June Street, Plimpton Street, Washington Street, and we plan on kicking off an installation of a water main approximately 600 feet on Plain Street very shortly. That'll complete the loop in the Lincoln Street area. And Weston and Sampson reports that the final 2 VFDs for that project, they're on back order and they should be in by month's end. That's Washington 5 and High Street Booster. On the sewer side, we have Chandler and Leonard Road. They may be pushed back a bit. I got a phone call from the engineer today. I guess they're having issues with Gorman-Rupp pumps that actually make the pumps, and Hayes Pump that actually services, and they're the primary vendor for those. So I should know in the next few days whether or not that's going to be set back a bit. And also I have preliminary engineering drawings for the Eleanor Road pump station as well. And we're in the final conversation and design with that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Okay, I just had a question. Was it Route 1 or Route 1A state project?
Route 1A, sir.
1A, okay. That's the one that's center of town. Any questions for Bernie? Okay, being none, let's move on. The first item is the comments on the 40B being proposed for Darwin Lane extension there. It's Darwin Commons. Did everybody get a late mail from Mary somewhere around maybe 1:30? Carl Baldoff, the town engineer, has some comments there. Did everybody get that in their email?
Yes.
Okay. We want to get our comments in by March 24th, which is tomorrow. So, okay. If there, anyone have any comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I'm going to abstain, Bill, from discussion.
Okay. John Hassenjäger's abstaining. Okay, Glenn, go ahead.
Well, I think it's noted. Kyle, the engineer, made this comment, and I think was emphasizing that this is located in Zone 2, which is a sensitive area for water recharge. It's very close to our 400-foot protection zone. So this development should be should be on our radar and should stay there. So I am concerned about stormwater runoff and how that happens. I know that the grade is heading toward our well. So how the stormwater is treated is a real concern to me. It was mentioned by Carl Baldoff, and I would like to reiterate those concerns. And the wastewater collection system, it looks like it's going to have to be pumped, and that's a concern. If we have a failing pump station for sewer, then that could be a disaster for our wells. And so that's something that really needs to be looked at very closely. Probably one. So I'd like to reiterate all of Carl's comments. I think they were all very spot on. My thing that I would add is impervious surface. I don't know if we have any information on that, but I would be interested in knowing out of 3.5 acres, a little less than 3.5 acres, what percent impervious surface will be developed or will be created. And that's a concern to me as well. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. John Spillane?
My only thing, Bill, is like proximity to our wells. And I think there should be like an environmental manhole there or something to catch some of that water, just to make sure it doesn't get down to our wells.
Okay. Okay, John and Patrick's out there. What a couple things that I wanted to bring up is, one, when I looked through the big application that's like about, I don't know, half an inch thick, I noticed on page 7 there's an item that says steep slopes, and it's listed as no. And I'm wondering if anybody who was writing this had ever looked at or walked that, because there's nothing but steep slopes in that. I think we'd want the water line to be looped back from the turning circle at the end back onto Darwin Lane, so we don't have just one dead end. The other thing, looking at they had a couple of diagrams before you got to that half-inch thick application, and if you look at, I guess the second one, units 17, 18, 19, and 20 appear to be like 15 feet away from the 400-foot radius, and I'm concerned about if this 40B is approved, being able to construct those buildings and keeping equipment outside of the 400-foot radius. As you're aware, the 400-foot radius, you can't do much more than walk, or walking on it. And I would think that it would be very important that that 400-foot radius be clearly delineated and probably a fence, so that you don't have construction vehicles accessing as well as just construction activities. Either that or moving those units so that they're not so close to the actual 400-foot radius.
Mr. Chairman, can I interject real quick?
Yes, you can.
I don't want to change your line of thinking here, but just on the 400-foot radius, do we not control the 400-foot radius for a small piece of it?
We own the 400-foot radius that you can see. We can't see it on the map, but that arc. The 400-foot radius does continue on to, I think, I'm not sure. I think it's 1310 Washington Street. Rick or Bernie, do you know if I got the number right? We have an easement where the arc actually goes through a part of.
Sure, but on Darwin Lane, do they own a piece of our 400-foot radius?
No.
Okay, so would there be a concern that they could build, that there could be no structure of any sort? But what you're suggesting is that we have a fence delineating where that zone begins.
Yes, and only just so that while construction's going on, as well as, once people are living there, I mean, if you look at the diagram, and I realize it's, not a architectural or design sketch, but it appears that it's 15 feet away, and I just can imagine trying to construct a building with 15 feet of clearance. It would be very easy to go into the 400-foot radius, which, as we're all aware, the DEP regulations for Zone 1, which is the 400-foot radius, is basically you can walk on it. That's about it. Or, certainly you can do water maintenance of the water system.
So in addition to a fence, I might add that we have appropriate signage that really delineates that as being stay away from this area, don't come near here, and don't impact this area.
That would be a good idea as well once the thing is completed, so that the residents who move in are also aware.
Oh, sure. So temporary signage for construction, but then permanent
right.
for post-construction.
Okay. Let's see. Patrick, I don't know if we're able to get any comments. If you can hear me, Patrick, if you can get those to Mary, I'd appreciate that. Rick and Bernie, you have any comments?
Actually, I was with Carl, and when we discussed hit this memo, so we're pretty much on the same page. There is no water line, there is no sewer line, there's no infrastructure really for us to comment in that respect right now. So I think he did a bang-up job for what we discussed and put it down right in black and white. So I think it's very well on my point.
Okay. Rick, you have anything you want to add?
Well, my point is that there'll be plenty of other opportunities to comment on this. This is just for the submittal of the application.
Okay.
So we typically provide standard comments relative to fees and things of that sort. Again, once it gets to the zoning board process, there'll be ample opportunity to provide, comments relative to looping and utilities and things of that sort.
Okay,
Val's point, it's just a very, it's schematic in nature. The sketch that was provided is not by the engineer that's even going to be working on the job. If you see, it was Glosser Engineering.
Right.
I believe Wall Street uses GLM. So
Right.
there's a long way to go in this thing, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to provide additional comment.
Who is the comments to? Is it to the?
And the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, to the Board of Selectmen,
Board
and
of
they are
Selectmen.
going to be making comments to the
Housing
state?
Commission. Yes.
So Bill, can I just get you on that one?
Yes,
So
Jim.
what this is, what the board had asked for is give us your comments, and we'll be sure to include them as part of our overall comments.
Okay.
to the state. So we're gonna basically attach it as an appendix, on the back of our comments.
Okay,
Same exact thing we did with Summer Street, Doopy Street, and all the others.
I think what is of particular concern, and I understand, but the closeness to the 400-foot radius of a well is something that isn't normally something you'd address on a 40B because they're nowhere near any of the wells. So,
If I could suggest, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we require the developer or the project proponent to do an environmental study relative to the location of the site and the wells.
okay, Mary, if we could add that, and Jim, the Board of Selectmen need this by tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah, tomorrow, but if it's a day, we'll be sure to get it in if it comes in a day or two late.
Okay. All right. Any further comments, questions on comment request number 1, which was the 40B residents at Darwin Common?
So my question is, are we gonna make a motion to the, with our comments, or are we going to, I wanna.
Well, you could make that motion. That
Okay,
we
so I will.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that, we refer comments to the Board of Selectmen related to, Darwin Lane, Darwin Commons, and we, reiterate Carl Bowdorf's comments, we agree with those, and add, that a fence should be, surrounding our 400-foot protection zone, during construction, possibly post-construction, and that signage during construction and post-construction should indicate that it is a protected zone. That we also should add that an environmental study relative to the closeness and proximity to our wells should be conducted by the applicant. And I would like to add that impervious surface as close to 15% should be the goal.
Okay. Mary, you got all that? She does. Is there a second to Glenn's motion?
Just one other thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Rick?
interject again. I would also ask that we request comments from the Department of Environmental Protection, Water
Okay.
Resource Commission, or the division of the DEP that would handle this.
I'll
Okay.
amend my motion to request comments from the DEP.
All right. We have a motion and an amendment there. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
By John Spillane. Okay. All those in favor? John Spillane?
Aye.
Glenn Maffey?
Aye.
Patrick? Again, we're not sure if we're getting him. And Bill Abbott, aye. Okay. Let's move on. Next one is site plan decision from the planning board. This is out on Route 1A down south of the town. It's currently Leo's Pizza, and it's being developed. Again, there's nothing that we can do. The planning board is just notifying people of their decision. So that's a read and noted. Commonwealth Dance Academy letter dated March 2nd, 2021. And they're thanking us for approving their application and including a check of $150 for the required fee. I think that's a read and noted, unless anyone has any comments.
No, I assume the rec department will coordinate the opening and closing of the gate, and I know they were going to go late into the night. They're going to figure that out, I assume.
Okay.
I've got a comment, Bill.
Yes, John.
I wasn't available at that meeting, but if I was, I would have gone against this. It's a commercial enterprise. I don't think it belongs up there. But what's done is done.
We did have some discussion about that, John, relating to the fact that it was a commercial, and also there was some discussion whether it is a local commercial versus, out of town commercial. So there was plenty of discussion, but appreciate those comments there.
At this point, I'm almost mind of just lock the place up, keep everything out of there. This is getting a little out of hand now.
Okay, well, we certainly will, I'm sure, have additional people who coming forward, so.
Great.
Okay. Next correspondent is from Jim Johnson, Town Administrator, regarding the treatment plant rehab project. And I don't know that there's anything we have to do. They're already starting their work, right? Bernie?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is for the contract that the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board awarded 2 weeks ago, was for the painting of the internals.
Oh, it is the painting. This is for the rehab of the
Exactly.
filters. Okay.
This is on the agenda for tonight's Select Board meeting.
All right. And we have sufficient funding?
We do.
All right, and I'll make a motion that we recommend that the Board of Selectmen award the contract to Roberts Water Technologies.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor? John Spillane?
Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn Maffey?
Aye.
Bill Abbott? Aye. And Patrick, can you hear us? All right, not sure. Okay. Correspondence 4, this is my regular update to the water production. And as you can see, while from May to October, we were back to historic norms of water production. But since that time, from November, December, and continuing through January and February, we're back to being in the red there, where we're about 10% below our historical norms, that being 2016, 17, and 18, the average of those years. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that. Correspondence 5, this is also the regular item that I put in, showing the revenue for both water and sewer. On a positive side, the usage charges at the end of February puts us a bit ahead of where you would expect after 8 months in. The problem that we're having, of course, is the new entrance fees. The budget planned on 430,000, and we're still at 56,000, and that's going to be a high hurdle to overcome. In the sewer, we're sort of close to where you'd expect on the usage charges. The others are fairly close, so I continue to monitor those, and each I get this information about the 10th of each month, and we'll continue to update it. Okay, policy review.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, Jim.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit. At some point or another, Articles 7 and 9 on the town meeting warrant address the in-year budget adjustment.
Right.
Obviously, as you noted, we're keeping a close eye on this one, but if we need to get into it, we should probably put some money aside come April to address this potential shortfall. I think we'll know much more once we get up to April 15th. We'll only have maybe a little bit less, 2.5 months left in the fiscal year, but we should prepare, that should be the drop dead date, so that we can make the appropriate motion for town meeting come the 1st, which town meeting is going to be held that Saturday, May 1st. So we have to plan accordingly, and I think the commissioner should probably start thinking about that. So.
All right. One of the things I'd just like to make sure everybody's aware, there's actually 4 articles that are related to water and sewer budgets. 2 of them are for the coming fiscal year, which are the normal ones, and the other 2, which Jim's just referring to, deal with coming up with any revenue to come up with any shortfall. I did come up with a projection of both where I think water and sewer revenues will be, or usage revenues, I should say, at the end of the year, using information that I'd collected from the prior fiscal year. And I sent it out to Lisa and Jody and I believe Rick and Bernie. Jody, I think if you're still on the call, if you'd have any comments on that.
Hi, Lisa's here with me as well. She's hiding. So I took a look, and I think your assumptions were pretty good. So I felt comfortable with what you put together.
Okay, so on the water, the assumptions were that we were very close, and I had some really conservative thoughts there, mainly that other than the usage, which obviously we know we're going to continue, people are going to use water, but the other items such as entrance fees and whatever, that we didn't even gain another dollar in the last 4 months, which is probably highly unlikely. But when you add the $400,000 water retained earnings that we put in with the budget, water looked like there's a good chance that we might actually come even with what we were planning. And I think it's due to the extra water that we pump from May to October that's really helping out, offsetting the lack of new entrance fees. On the sewer side, wasn't as positive there. When we established the sewer rates, we did not have any retained sewer earnings as part of the rates. And one of the things that we didn't do, and what I am proposing for this coming fiscal year, is adjusting the estimated consumption down from 52 million cubic feet down to 48 million cubic feet. And I think had we done that in the prior, of course, the rate, instead of being a reduction of 2.43%, I think would have been slightly positive, because the way we calculate the rates is you get the expenses and they're divided by your estimated consumption. So as the net would be is I think that there's a good chance that we'll come close, if not actually exceed the amount on water by just a small amount. As far as for the article, Jim, I would think that we, when we come to the April 15th, that we, if it looks like we're going to make it, just to be safe, we say, let's use 100,000 or something, just in case, I'd hate to come up a couple dollars short when, and so I would rather, have a small amount, not that 100,000 is a small amount, but just to make sure that we're able to balance the budget. And if you don't use it, it just goes back to retained earnings anyways. On the sewer, I think we're definitely going to have to use some sewer retained earnings to take care of a shortfall in the sewer budget. And there appears to definitely going to be that case. So any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Glenn.
So I'm just looking at some of the numbers here, and I'm going to focus in on the usage charges because that's where we get most of our revenue for water specifically. Mm-hmm. And I have numbers here through February, which would be 2/3 of the year. And so if we were to remain on target, and I'm just assuming that we have equal revenue for each month, which I recognize that we don't. But if we did, then the goal would be just over $3 million in collected revenues at this point. And we've exceeded that by almost $900,000, $855,000. So we're over almost $900,000 over on usage charges. Now, of course, you take a look at service and entrance fees, we're down $227,000. You take all the pluses and all the minuses, and I have it. I crunched some numbers, and I have it that we're 12% over projections right now. So I think so I guess I'm a little confused when you said that we were close to even.
Well, if you try and space it out month by month, what you're saying is correct. What happens is, looking at historical trends, and I have them month by month, the last months are actually slower than the first months in the fiscal year. What I was using was the actual 2020 fiscal year numbers for the exact same months and actually I was looking anything that would have a billing date of March 1st to the middle of June, to June 1st, all the revenue that we would take in would be booked as fiscal year 21 revenue. And And that was also, even though I'm using the prior year's fiscal year, I used those actual numbers and increased it by the rate increase that we had for the present fiscal year. And that's where I was coming up with a number that put us very close. But you're right, mathematically, if you divide the amount by 8 to get the average monthly rate, you do come up with a number that we just never reach on the last months. We're usually slow to start off. It increases by the middle of the year, and then it tails off again. And it's really a reflection of, the fact when we're billing, one, if you're billing for a quarter of a year, you got to go back 3 months, and then we have a billing lag that is around 40 days. So even the area that I was looking at were winter months, is what we'll be billing for from here until the end of the fiscal year.
Sure.
The revenue is going to be lower than just doing a mathematical, let's divide the amounts by 8 and then multiply by 12.
No, sure, and that makes sense to me, but we did lower our consumption estimate to a more realistic and conservative, I think. Conservative or realistic, one of those two,
Right.
73 million. And so that should help us reach our targets, I would
Yes,
think
it
in the
did.
remaining months. So I think we're being more realistic, and I would be interested to see kind of how that plays out.
I can give you a copy of the projection that I gave to Jody and Lisa. I gave it to them first because I wanted them to say, "No, Bill, you missed something. You're, off on me." But I think you'll be able to see how I arrived at those numbers, and I think that they're going to hold pretty well.
Okay. The other thing is our consumption estimate. I know you mentioned sewer, but are we going with 73 million? Certainly, I think we should discuss that. But I mean, are you using 73 million again for the next fiscal year?
That's my recommendation would be to go with 73 million.
We have a lot of new projects. I know Siemens, for example, I think the town administrator said is 99% complete, and so they're basically coming online, and they're projected to add 160,000 gallons a day in water usage, at probably our fourth tier primarily. So, just looking at that one example, but we have a whole list of projects in Liberty Village and Westry, so we have estimates of what these projects, which are coming online now, and will be paying bills in the next fiscal year. So we have these estimates, and I think we should probably calculate this additional usage.
At that point, when we get to actually have to decide a number, I will have had 9 months of actual usage, and we'll be able to compare it to the prior year that was same. And if it is higher, then it would warrant us to consider a higher number.
Well, sure. I mean, trailing is definitely helpful, but I think we have some forecasts that I think are pretty accurate. We have a general idea of, a specific idea of who is online and who is about to be online. And Siemens is one of them. And maybe it's, 160,000. I'm looking at a document from over a year ago, so maybe that number could be revised. But that's a lot of water usage per day.
Yes, it is.
For one customer, and we have more than them, too.
Yeah.
I want to take a look at that, and if we can get some more information, that would be helpful.
Conversely, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's just a matter of time before that Water Management Act permit comes out, and we are not going to meet the 65-10 criteria. 65 gallons per capita per day and 10% unaccounted for water. We're not going to meet both of those, I don't believe. So what's going to happen is the state, in their infinite wisdom, is going to reduce the watering to 1 day a week. So that'll have a dramatic impact on your revenue. So I would just caution you against being so quick to adjust that 73 million cubic foot number,
And
until we get the facts from the state.
one of the other considerations, Glenn, is if you look at on correspondence 4, the water production for 2019, we did not have an increase during the summer, and we did this current 2020. And I'd be hesitant to say, if we had a longer term, and maybe in the next couple of years, where you could look and say, all right, I got a better idea as to, is it looking more like typical of 2019, or was that the outlier in 2020 where we had, increased production during the summer? It is the outlier. and I just would prefer to be a little bit more conservative, because, you know, our tendency to use retained earnings is not a good way to go. So we really do have to be conservative until we get a real good handle on this. And we've made a number of changes on the way we calculate the rates. One, by trying to use more realistic estimated consumption. The other thing that we're proposing is recognizing the fact that the revenue that comes in at the beginning of a fiscal year is all based on the prior year's rates, not the current. And, you know, those types of things to try and make it more accurate so that we don't have to dip into retained earnings, because we use that for a lot of capital projects, and we have a number of capital projects coming up that we've been postponing.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I guess my concern is, I mean, we've arrived at 73 million, perhaps it's a conservative estimate, but I don't, and I'm not looking to do any extreme. I never like to do extremes. You know, I think it was an extreme move to bring it down from 88 to 73. We did it once, we targeted it as best we could, and now as we get more data, I think it has to go up, right? I mean, and it doesn't have to go up a lot. It could be 3%, but I mean, you know, and we could do it based on data and actual new additions to the system, or we could do it based on a general percentages, you know, 3% per year, every year is about right, you know, whatever our growth is in Walpole. But I don't think it's ever going to stay still. It's never going to be, maybe it's 73 million for another year, but as we look forward, it's going to head in the upward direction.
So Glenn, if I could just jump in on this, and Bill, so have we moved on to the part where we've moved past the in-year budget, and are we talking about FY22 now? I just want to confirm.
Yeah, we've moved on to FY22.
We're on that part of the agenda. So
right.
I really, I'm looking at Bernie, Jody, Lisa I know is out of the picture, and Rick. The people here in the office who are managing this day-to-day are not comfortable going beyond the 73,000. That's why we thank you, Jody, for giving me the thumbs up. That's why we drafted this budget at this position. I don't want to be in a position, you know, a couple of years from now saying, oh, we have 400,000 in retained earnings. We don't know what to do. We're running at a deficit, and it's April. I think I'm glad, Glenn, that you said maybe another year of the 73. I'd like to see where we stand next year at this time. You know, maybe you're right. Maybe by then Omni is in the work, and Omni is going forward in South Walpole. We got the project at the Applebee's Hotel there. That's moving forward. A lot of these projects paused. You know, Pulte's another example. They decided not to build the third building. I see that they've started on the foundation now. I'd like to see what post-COVID or the vaccine world we're going to live in the next year or two is going to look like before we, you know, bump it up. I agree that we should really base it on data, but right now we don't have that data in front of us. So if we could, I'd like to at least buy us another year at the 73,000.
Yeah, I think we're at
73,000, 73 million was based on actual data. The prior year it was like 72.8 million, and you know we talked and said, all right, 73 we ought to. Of course, we didn't know about COVID, but so we are.
It puts us. I think it's fine. I think it's great to stay there and get some more data for another year. It does put us in a position where we might over-collect on revenues. I hope we do. I think that would be a good problem to have. But if we over-collect on revenues and that money gets directed into retained earnings, then we have to be willing. We can't just blanketly say we can't touch retained earnings because that's not what it's there for. I agree. It's there for capital-type projects unless we over-collect because we underestimated our consumption. I don't know if we did. It seems like we're heading in that direction. I'd like to see some of Bill's data that says we're going to probably meet the projections. If we meet them, then great. We don't have to do anything. But if we've over-collected, then that's bad.
We're meeting those projections, including using 400,000 retained earnings. If we weren't using that in the current fiscal year, we'd be down 400,000, and a lot of that is because there isn't any entrance fees to speak of. But it's
but I'm looking at the consumption is related directly to the usage charges.
Yes, so it is.
I'm really focusing on that one line item,
right?
As we're talking about the consumption.
Well, one of the things I was projecting for the coming fiscal year is that we'd only have 200. I think it was $240,000 of new entrance fees. And again, just looking at things around town, and as Jim mentioned, the Pennington Crossing, they haven't started to occupy the second building, and the third and fourth building don't exist. I don't hear construction over across the railroad tracks here at West Street project with 160 developments there. Burns Ave never seems to get moving. The Summer Street, which I assume will be approved somewhere, it's all woods at this point. So, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's really important that we get our house in order where we're not using retained earnings. And, I was suggesting let's step down to 200,000 to get a rate that's, I believe, is doable. And with the idea that following that we stop, using retained earnings.
Which is where I think getting the consumption estimate as close to accurate as possible would help in meeting that goal.
Yep. Anyone else want to comment on?
No comment, but to let you know, I've been able to hear since correspondence number 4. So excellent. I can see and hear you all.
Okay.
Excellent.
I don't know if that's a blessing or what.
Bill, I would like to comment if that's
yes,
okay.
Jody, if you could.
Okay, so Glenn, I do agree with you where you're going. We're not there yet, as Bill has said. I think that we need to get our retained earnings, stop using retained earnings for operations. I know that Mary and her team are working to try to close the gap on the billing time. And, all those things are just going to improve. And, Bill's got his model now. And so he's pretty much right on target, with the first 3 months of the fiscal year being the old rate. And so once we can really get through all of that, then I think we can really start to focus. Just some history in reporting our revenue. Rick can attest to this because I drove him crazy. The DOR takes a look at our user fees, and if we're not meeting our user fees, or if we're even just close to user fees, they start asking questions. They just recently implemented a new form that needs to be filled out when we report to them, so that they can see more mathematically what we're talking about, as opposed to saying, well, there was just, it rained too, you know what I mean? So I think it's the right direction to go in. I just don't think we're there yet.
Bernie, are you raising your hand?
No, I am agreeing.
Oh, okay. When I saw your hand raise. Anyone else want to have any comment? Okay.
Just one consideration. Mr.
All right.
Chairman,
Rick?
is you should probably use averages, 3-year averages, because you have so many variables that can affect water consumption, whether you get a dry season or rainy season, water management permits, things like that. So to try to pinpoint it from year to year to year is going to be very difficult. You need to have some sort of buffer built into your consumption number. So I would suggest, similar to what the MWRA does when they set the annual assessments, they use I believe calendar year. They use the 3 previous years of flows. So that's perhaps something that we should probably look at.
And that's why I think it's important that that I'm capturing this data and keeping it up, so that we have actual data as to when the water is being used, and my projections. And you'll see, Glenn, and anyone else who wants a copy of it, I'll be happy to send it to them. I'm comparing usage times within days of what we're expecting going forward. Mary has a schedule of when rates are going out. I'm not sure I was interrupted or whatever, but anyways, and so the projections are using, I think, some pretty good data. I wish we'd been doing this for a number of years earlier, because then we'd be in real good shape of using averages, and we might be able to see why did we pump more water in 2020, but we didn't do it in 19. And the more information that we have, there are some variables that we're just never going to know, but the more you know, the better you are at being able to make predictions, I guess.
So it sounds like at our next meeting, we're gonna probably decide if we keep the consumption the same. I'm certainly okay with that, and then talk about how much retained earnings we're gonna use, and we'll have one more month of revenue.
Right, I get it around the 10th, so.
Well, I'm hoping for you guys to have, give us some direction today, because I need to go to the finance committee. They're trying to finalize everything by April 5th with their motions. I was really hoping that you guys were gonna vote on, the funding sources today, which I identified for you last week, but.
Well, we can address that, now. We have that in, it's our discussion number 2. And Mary, you sent us a memo, but it really just changed the date. That was the only thing. If for Articles 8 and 10, that would require.
In their shop at all? Yeah. Yeah, in their shop.
That would require I believe, a 5.6 or 5.7 rate increase on both water and sewer, using $200,000 of retained earnings, keeping the water estimated consumption at 73 million, and dropping the sewer down to 48,500,000 cubic feet, which is pretty close to what we have used in the prior complete fiscal year.
5.6% increase for water, and what was sewer?
They were both right at around 5.6, 5.7.
Yes.
And that's no retained. I'm sorry, 200,000 retained earnings for sewer,
and from both sewer and water, right? And keeping in mind that this fall, we will be looking at using some retained earnings for phase 2 of Skater upgrades. We haven't. We've been planning to clean the distribution lines into the treatment plants for another 400,000. I mean, those two right there.
Distribution was 400,000. What was the other one?
The other one, Skater 2, I think was like the high 500s, and that was a couple years ago. So it might be
talking about almost $1 million.
Almost $1 million. The
capital that we're not going to borrow for.
Right, and the track in the Willis, the treatment plant, not the Willis one, the Delaney treatment plant, we appropriated money, but it wasn't sufficient, and we'll have to have an article in the fall to make up the difference. I don't know, Rick or Bernie, do you remember what we're short there?
I want to say it was at least 175,000, I believe.
So, just those 3 items are items that, are now we've totaled over $1 million.
And when are these expected, and for the fall to be capital items for the fall?
Yes, that's when we introduced the capital items is in the fall. And also, Mr. Chairman, we were going to go for a possible water main replacement, which we'd have to borrow for as well.
The design, though, typically is around 150,000 would be done out of retained earnings to do the design and then the construction. But the point being, we have healthy retained earnings, but there are items that we're planning on using those retained earnings, and they can quickly disappear or get to a dangerous level.
So can I get an update from Jody on retained earnings in water and sewer?
Jody? Yes. Yep, she's nodding.
I have those numbers up.
Okay.
In August, the one was certified at $2,296,609, and that was for the water. And sewer was $2,176,444.
So like 2.2 and 2.1. I have a question about that for the Delaney treatment plant, where we're short about 175,000. It's the money that we already appropriated. Is that taken out of the retained earnings number, or is that an additional number that's going to be subtracted? I guess the issue is, once you've appropriated it, even though you haven't spent it, because we haven't spent the original appropriation yet, because we don't have enough money to do the project, does that come out, or it does come out? So in effect, it's already been removed. So that 2.2 number is what we have, rather than having to reduce it by whatever we appropriated and just weren't able to use. Once it's appropriated, it's in effect spent.
The only thing you'll need to reduce by is the supplemental appropriation. To complete
Okay,
the fund.
so once it's appropriated, even if you haven't spent it yet, in terms of the certified number, it includes what's been appropriated, even if you haven't quite spent it yet. Okay.
Is that entire skater number coming out of water, or is it split between water and sewer?
It comes out of water.
Water.
We don't treat our sewer.
No. Well, what are we using from sewer retained earnings? Or do we have any projections? I'm saying what we're going to use.
We're going to use 200 for both water retained earnings.
Sorry, upcoming capital projects.
Oh,
Expected.
there's two more pump stations. I believe the last two, and I don't know.
Pretty much it's been to be determined for quite some time, Mr. Chairman, but we do have stations that can be upgraded.
So there we, a lot of the to be determines was, do we wish to ever extend the sewer system? We've had isolated things. One, I think was on Norton Ave. Was it Norton Ave that they wanted a short extension? And that actually was the highest priority in the draft sewer master plan. Now the person who wants the small extension just wants it up to their house.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the emphasis needs to be on the water portion of the retained earnings. And I say that because there are two unknowns that could potentially happen. The point, Bernie's point to the lagoons at the Willow Street plant, my guess is that's going to be somewhere in the area of $500,000, maybe a little bit more. And that's a compliance issue. So that's something that you're going to have to deal with. The second one is the unknown, is the PFAS testing. If for some reason we are triggered and become in non-compliance with the PFAS, then you're going to have to address that in terms of treatment. That could be millions of dollars.
Those things like that come from like Teflon and others.
So those are two things that the board needs to be aware of that are potentially sitting out there that are going to chew into retained earnings. So.
Yes.
That's why I think that 200,000 is, one, it's in the right direction. It does bring the rate down to something closer to, what we did this past year. But in the end, we have to be real careful. I know everybody would like to have lower rates, but unfortunately, we had very low rates that were as a result of us having over $1 million of entrance fees one year, followed by $800,000 of entrance fees the next year. And, we were projecting, much smaller numbers, and that was covering up the fact that our estimated consumption was just nowhere near accurate. But now we're starting to have actual values, and I think that's the key.
So the information we don't have, which is the hardest part about this conversation, is so we know what we're going to spend out of retained. We have a good idea of what money is going to have to come out of retained earnings to maintain our infrastructure, but we don't have the excess usage charges that may or may not be collected. I know you said you have some data on that. Can you summarize it for me? I know you shared it with Jody and Lisa. Could you summarize, what your estimates are in the next 4 months? I think it's 4 months of the year that we don't have, that I haven't seen data on. As far as usage charges, I know we've done well up through February, and I know we're really short on entrance fees. But
I don't have that in front of me. I'm at a different computer. I don't know, Jody, if you look on that, I come up with a number of the prior fiscal year for the exact same time frame that from March till the end of the fiscal year, and it's in the late fall, winter time. So it's not something that's going to be impacted by weather. Historically, those are our low months, and then increasing that by the 4.78% increase, which took place for the current fiscal year. And Jody's looking at it. I should have brought that with me, but I went to a quieter room.
I'm just trying to find it here in the email.
I want to say it was like 1.3 something.
There it is, yep. So for water, it was 1,356, and I'm rounding. And for sewer, oh, where is that number?
There, 1,334,000.
Well, right there.
Yeah.
Yes, 1,334,000 for sewer.
Now, that was the prior year. And then you had to reduce it by 2.43% because, you know, what had been recommended as for the budget for prior year was actually a reduction in sewer. But the 1.3 million is the revenue for water for the next 4 months, and
So that would be about almost $600,000 more than we budgeted for, which would get eaten up by entrance fees pretty quickly.
entrance fees, yeah.
Well, half of that would get eaten up by entrance fees.
Yeah.
Testing fees, I guess, are we?
Yeah, I'm not
testing
paying
fees?
too much attention to things that like $40,000 or whatever. It's the one.
$140,000, yeah.
Yeah.
$150,000.
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman and Glenn, the testing fees, we haven't been able to do backflow testing or any of that nature really because of COVID and such. So we have lost some revenue in that respect. Hopefully, we're going to try to get into some of the primary areas that we can test. You know, things are just starting to come around right now. So hopefully we'll be able to gain a little bit of revenue there, but it's not going to be anything like we've seen in the past because we haven't been able to do these tests.
Okay, well, that's $100,000. How about entrance fees? Is there, Jody, is there any information on entrance fees that is concrete enough that we think we're going to get revenue?
In my projections, I was predicting that we weren't going to have anything. It's been really
that's reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said,
a way to.
yeah, because I just don't see it. You know, I would just name these projects that just aren't.
When do they pay their entrance fees? When they
get their building
occupancy?
When they get their building permits.
Okay, do you have anybody in line for that in the next 4 months?
Possibly,
Siemens, for example.
What, Glenn?
I mentioned Siemens, or you know, I don't know.
They've already paid their entrance fees. What you'd be looking at is, you might say Summer Street, 300 units. They're just going to be, you know, cutting down trees if they start, you know, this, remember the fiscal years.
I don't think they'll even start, Bill.
I don't either. And you look at Burns Avenue, that's not as big, but, you know, that one just never seems to get off the ground. The Renmar Road, West Street, 3 units. They're still they've cut down all the trees, but there's no sight of any construction. Pennington Crossing, they when they got their approval, their plan was, we're not building, you know, we're not going to build all 4 buildings at once. We're going to build one, and once it's started to be occupied, we'll do the second one, and then we'll do the third. And, you know, and right now, those 2, you know, the second building, to my knowledge, is up, but not occupied. I do it if there's all those window stickers on the windows, they aren't in there, and you can see where building 3 and 4 are going to be, and they're just at best concrete slabs.
Okay, so 600,000 in extra usage charges, and we've got 56,000 from entrance fees, and you think that's going to be it? So we're going to be almost 400,000 short.
Yeah.
On entrance fees, so that brings us to about 200,000.
Yeah, that's why I'm suggesting that the 2,000 for next year. So I don't want to drag this much further.
Well, I mean, it's important because this is the rate that we're going to increase. So I think people need to understand why we're but why we're using 200,000 instead of 225. And I do think it's an important conversation.
Well, is there any other comments? I know Jim would like to, and I'd like us to, so that Jim has something to go to the FinCom, which would be his memo, and it's dated March 22nd for Articles 8 and 10. That's what you need, Jim, right?
Yeah, I need some, you know, direction from the sewer and water commissioners. Are you comfortable with that 200,000 in there, using it from retained earnings? And if you are, that's why I drafted the motions, so we can get the commissioners to vote on it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
All right, well, I'm comfortable also myself.
Same here.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we're in agreement with Jim's memo, which I won't read the whole thing, for Articles 8 and 10, which are dependent on 200,000 from retained earnings for water and 200,000 retained earnings for sewer. Is there a second? We've got a second from John. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll take a roll call vote. John Spillane?
Aye. Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn Maffey?
No.
And Patrick?
Abstain.
Abstain. And Bill, yes. So that's a 3-1-1 vote.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Okay. And let's get back, while we're in the discussion, for the sake of Jody and Lisa. Lisa, I think you're the one who's interested on our water bills here. As you saw in...
Bill, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I just want to double check the motions, because there was a change on water. You increased something from 18 to 25, so I just want to go through the numbers again.
Okay, that was something that Rick had suggested.
Okay.
And it was on testing fees on the water went from 18 to 25,000. It barely budged the numbers, when you're talking, $5 million in terms of the percentages.
Okay, but as far as, so the memo that was sent out on March 22nd,
Right.
because of that change, those numbers haven't been incorporated in that memo, so I want to give you new numbers, if that's okay, and then if you can
Yes.
reconsider. So the user fee amount for water should be $3,751,754.
754. Okay.
And then the retained earnings obviously is the same. The miscellaneous receipts in WPAT.
Yep.
That number should be 527,550.
Right. 515.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. And that the total is still the same, 4,479,269.
Okay. That's Article 8.
Right. And
Article 10, we didn't change anything, I don't believe.
No, that one should be okay. I'm just going to look very quickly. Oh no, that one changed as well. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So sewer, the user fee should be 4,388,351.
Okay.
And the miscellaneous receipts should be 290,241.
What was that? 200?
290,241.
241. Still staying with the 200,000 on each on retaining and sewer.
Correct.
All right. I'll make a motion that we change the numbers for Article 8 and 10, as Jody noted, of everything else staying the same. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Second by John.
Point of information, Bill.
Yes.
When is this all due now, Jim Johnson? When is this?
So I'm going to the Finance Committee. They vote, both you and the Finance Committee voted on the budget, which is your expenditures, you approved that. But as part of the overall town meeting motion, we have to identify the total expenses and the total revenues. And that's what these two motions are. So I want to make sure, I don't want to go forward with something that the commissioners aren't comfortable with. And that's what you guys just voted 3-1-1 on. I know Jody had a couple amendments there, but and I'm glad you're reconfirming that vote.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, far as the nuances of the numbers, for your purposes, you're talking about what gets printed in the warrant that you're concerned about, or, because if Glenn Maffey has some extraneous information coming forward that he wants us to reconsider between now and whenever, I'm just curious about the timing, the pressure on the vote and the timing, and what's the end game of that? To get it printed in the warrant, is that?
The end
Because
game-
other articles, sometimes they debate the town meeting, before the town meeting starts that night, they're voting on it at FinCom. So I mean, I'm trying to understand what the deadline is that we're trying to reach, other than to just fine tune these estimates.
Well, the deadline is so that we can, because we have to go to print with the warrant booklet, and the deadline for the finance committee to take all their votes and get that done is April 5th. I don't believe you guys have posted again between now and April 5th. I'd like to report to the finance committee that the sewer and water commissioners have voted on the funding sources, and they're ready for them, so it can go in the booklet. You're right, John, to go in the booklet so we can inform everyone. If something changes between now and May 1st, you're right, we've made changes. I don't see a problem with you guys making a change, but I know the finance committee are gonna ask me on April 5th what happened with sewer and water.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, and I believe a second. John, you explained you had seconded?
I think I did, Bill.
Yes, okay, so we're taking a vote, and this is on those revised numbers. They're not far off of what they were for 8 and 10 that Jody just read. So roll call vote, John Spillane,
Aye.
John Hassenjager,
Aye.
Glenn Maffey,
No.
and Patrick Fasinello,
Abstain.
and Bill Abbott, aye. So the same votes, 3-1-1. Thank you, everyone, on that. Now, we can go on to the issue with our water and sewer bills. Lisa let me know that our present printer of our water bills is no longer interested, actually I think it's all our bills, is no longer interested in printing ours. They've been acquired, and I guess maybe the new company is getting out of that end of the business. So Lisa is suggested that here's an opportunity for us to change what our water bill and sewer bills look like. And you have some examples. The last page shows what we currently have, and I think what I'd like to point out is, one, there's a lot of empty space here, so we do have an opportunity to add some information if we want. And the other, in the messages, it's like almost impossible. It's like we tried to cram every single number that you can get in there. So Lisa, you're suggesting that we might want to do what other towns have done, and it's similar to what you get on your electric bill, showing what your usage was month by month for previous years. So Lisa, if you could comment.
So what
So
you're gonna see is.
I'm not suggesting that. I just, the 3 different towns that we have, I think 2 out of the 3 bills had consumption. It's just an opportunity. Mary and I have talked about it. There's, whether you want the tax, the ratepayers, it's going to be too much information all at once or not enough. It's just an opportunity to take a look. If you can change, or you guys can change things, you can change them now. I don't know if showing consumption for the town of Walpole is a good idea. It's just on the samples that we gave you, they did have the yearly consumption. So that's just one of the things that is different from the other bills. It scares me when you talk about the message field, because that should stay somewhat static, because you do so many billings. If that changes, that has to be changed every single time we do a billing. So, having your rates in there, that's kind of an opportunity to keep them in there. Maybe we can rearrange some stuff or make a square bigger, but that message is not something that should be changed every time unless we need to change the message for something important, once or twice a year, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right. My suggestion is that because our rates are now, there's actually a residential rate, a commercial rate, out-of-town rate, irrigation rate, that, attempting to put that in a small block, I would suggest that we point them to the website to get the current rates for something like that. Personally, I think, and I understand that Mary's probably behind that mask is doing daggers at me here.
Exactly. But that's,
But I like the idea of, and you know, we could change some of these bills look kind of, you know, busy. The actual consumption for the last 12 readings is available in the print file. And the other thing that Lisa didn't mention is the print file can't change. So we are limited as into what we could produce on the bill. But when do we need to make a decision? Because if
so
somebody has an idea, we could, and maybe the decision is we don't want to, you know, put the consumption for the last 12 bills on it. And, you know, maybe, I'm not else, what else we could do, but
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, go ahead, Glenn.
So maybe instead of the last 12 bills, because as we know, March and April aren't necessarily the same, in July or August and September, if you're watering lawns, doesn't really give you too much information. Yeah, we use less water in September than August. So a year-over-year number, if I could have August of 2020 and August of 2021, I don't know if that's possible, but that would be more useful to a consumer than 12 months of usage.
I use the billing file for my, and I can tell you, it's basically, here's the date we read, here's the usage.
But what I described is what Eversource does, for example.
Right.
You know, I know we're not Eversource, but.
right.
So
it's what's in the file, and Bill has learned this file inside and out over the past year and a half, so he knows exactly what's in the file. So it's what, you know, what comes out of the file is what could be on the bill. And like Bill said, it's the date, the last day that it was read, and that would be what would come in.
So would that information not be, could what I described not be doable?
It's I don't think it's in the file, right, Bill?
no, you're then depending on the printer doing calculations with stuff, and the printer doesn't want to do that. And I don't think we want the printer to be doing that.
Well, 12 months is still something.
If we came up with something by our next meeting, is that timely enough for you for?
So we've selected our printer. It's Globe Direct, and I've actually sent them my files, my test files for real estate and personal property. So you have a little time. They're working on those. I told them there might be some changes to the water file. So I think we have a little bit of time. The printer that we currently use gave us till June 1st, but they said we could extend it beyond because they know we're not going to be able to do every single bill by June 1st. I don't think. So you guys have some time because they're working on our other stuff right now.
Okay, I guess what I'd like to do is just get a sense of, from the board, do they think it would be a good idea to have the last 12, or it could be 6 or whatever bill amounts, it would be the date and the usage amount, or they say no, let's not do that. So I'll get it. I just like a sense of whatever, and maybe I could draft an idea of what it might look like, and anybody else could come up with an idea if we want to go that route. If we don't, you know, we could give some thought. I think the idea of listing the rates it's really not a good idea, because for one period of time, you really need both, you know, the current fiscal year and the prior year, and that just starts to get way too many numbers for that. So I'll just ask John Spillane, do you have any thoughts on your mind whether we should do anything or not, or?
I would say not, Bill, right now.
Okay. John Hassenjager.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to overload the form. I don't know if there's any hybrid between these examples, but a little more information wouldn't hurt. I mean, I kind of like the idea of the power.
And this is the worst time for you to. All right, we'll come back to John Hassenjager to get his final thoughts on that. Glenn Maffey, your thought.
Yeah, so I think your idea is fine. Sorry, John, I think you're back. Go ahead.
All right, John Hassenjager, you're back there. You dropped.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, yeah, I probably would like to give her some feedback, think about it. I don't want a lot of information. I agree with John Spillane. I just think maybe the one thing, the consumption history piece kind of intrigues me. I guess I'd have to think about that, whether that's a plus or a minus.
Okay, Patrick?
Yes, I think it's very important to see whether you're like the electric bill, how many gallons you use vis-a-vis the last year or the last month. Well, I have another question too.
All right.
You know, in the beginning when I got on the board, the commission really were the issuing authority for the bills. Since we set the rates, it was a water commission bill. It was not a water department bill. Now I know, you know, it's a water department bill now. And I'm just curious, when did that change and why did it change? That's always bothered me when I see a bill, and we're responsible for those rates. It should be in our name, not in, you know, the water department.
Is there, I'm just looking at our current bill to see, does it say, I mean, you're paying it to the town of Walpole, which is appropriate. I don't see it mentioning the water department or water and sewer department or water and sewer commission. It's a bill for water and sewer. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Patrick.
It should be under our name. That's what it looks like it used to be. Somehow it managed to get changed.
Well, I save all those bills, so I'll look back to.
You can look back and see. You can check.
Go back
John
to.
Spillane, who was on before me, might remember.
Yeah, I'll take a look. So I get a sense that we're
I didn't really get a chance.
Oh, I didn't. I thought I asked. Oh.
No, I deferred back to John Hassenjäger.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, just a couple quick comments, and so I think it's fine. The year, year over year, if that's possible. 12 months of usage would be also helpful. If you took out the rates in the message box, I think that would be okay. But if you put something back in there, like the fact that the toilet rebates and other types of rebates that are available that people might not know about, that would be an appropriate thing for the message box. So I would be in favor of promoting those kinds of things. And then the other thing that's recommended by the state DEP is actually communicating to people in gallons instead of cubic feet. I know we communicate in cubic feet. We can certainly do that calculation for people, but people like to see, people understand gallons and don't understand cubic feet. And that was actually a recommendation in the water management permit when I was reading that. So it's something to consider. And I've seen other bills that actually at least give you the calculation, give you the formula.
But we could give them, certainly we could give them a formula. I'm not sure the printer is going, because they would have to be multiplying the cubic feet times 4, and I don't see them doing that. Leaker is shaking her head.
They only do what's in the file. So if maybe in the message box, you could put a sample calculation so that they could at least calculate it out. But they just take what we give them and they just use the file.
Yeah, I'd say it's a recommendation that comes directly from the state DEP. I didn't make that up.
All right, I'll draft a sample that we could have for the next meeting as an idea. If anybody has a thought or wants to come up with a sample themselves, like I say, the information on historical rates is the date that the meter was read and the actual cubic feet. Those are the only two numbers that are available. So, okay. We've got 2 items left here. One is the policy review, 23 Pinnacle Drive. And this was an abatement, the same thing we've done in a number of cases where they've had excess water consumption, and it turns out that there was we've had a broken hose, we've had, broken pipes and whatever, where the water does not go into the sewer, where we abate the sewer usage. Yes.
I'll make a motion to abate the excess charges in the sewer.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion? There being none. Glenn, okay.
What are we voting on? Are we voting on Pinnacle and Norfolk Street?
Well, John, do you want to make it both?
The second one.
Let's separate them.
Okay.
Okay. So this is for Pinnacle, 23 Pinnacle Drive. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, John Spillane?
Aye.
All right. John Hassenjager?
Abstain.
Abstaining. Glenn Maffey?
Aye.
Patrick Fasenello?
Aye.
And Bill Abbott, aye. So that's a 4-0-1 on that one. And the second one is on 49 Norfolk Street. And this was, they had a leak in their pool that they continually kept filling up.
Was that a water or sewer abatement, Bill? I don't have it in front of me.
It's a sewer abatement. It's the same idea of the water did not go into the sewer.
I'd make the same motion then.
All right. We have a second. Glenn has second that. All those in favor, again, roll call. John Spillane?
Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn Maffey?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Bill Abbott, aye. All right, so that's a 5-0-0. And I believe
Motion to adjourn.
all right, thanks, John, that you're
Back in.
back. We've got a second from Glenn. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we'll go the roll call. John?
Aye.
John Hassenjager?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
And Bill, aye. We're out. All right, Mary, I will sign the abatements and bring them over to you.
Okay, John. Okay, Bill, thank you.